All right, hey guys. I wanted to just do a little chit chat. I haven't done one of these in a little bit, so I thought I would come on and just do a little chit chat of some things that are on my mind and, things that I just want to kind of put out there and I don't know, maybe remind someone of something or just give us a little more to consider. Now, you guys know that I'm not a bury your head kind of person. I don't think it's wise to just live in your own little bubble and have no clue about what's going on in the world because it's just so difficult to take. It's just so awful and bad, right? It's like, ugh, I just don't want to know about all the things going on in the world. And I definitely can relate to wanting to kind of shield yourself from that. And I can relate to not wanting to just saturate yourself in bad stuff, right? Which is why I tell people all the time, or I suggest to not spend your life going down a bunch of rabbit holes. It's really not going to be good for you. It's really not. However, I do believe it's important to have some general ideas of what's going on just so that we can navigate and we can make choices that will hopefully protect us a little bit from, some of the things going on out there. Now, today I am in lockdown in my house. I've got my air purifier going, I've got the windows closed, and I've got the fans going. So at least I'm not baking. I hate air conditioning. I don't use air conditioning. Hate it. But yeah, so the air quality today is really bad. Now, it's not the worst that it could be, okay? It's not like being in parts of India or in parts of China or what have you. It's not that bad, okay? But it is considered unhealthy for sensitive individuals. It's over 100. The air quality is over 100. And I have COPD. It's well managed though. And I do not take modern medication for it, but it is well managed. And I have a lot of chemical sensitivities and things like that. So I'm in lockdown today. I'm staying inside all day. And one of the things that I wanted to just remind people of is that these fires are happening out in Canada, Montana, out that way. I'm on the East Coast. I'm all the way on the East Coast. And it is affecting me on the East Coast, all right? So what is going on in the world does affect us, especially when it's in the air, all those kinds of, things, pollution from fires, from chemical factories and things like that. Once these pollutions get into the air, they float all around the planet, all right? So it sucks. It really sucks, okay? Now, this idea that when we heal, when we get on our healing journey and we start healing, that we should all of a sudden be immune to toxins and poisons, things that almost killed us in the past. Like somehow we should be able to tolerate them better if our body was healthier, right? But the problem with that is that it doesn't work that way. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Some people have a natural ability to handle toxins and poisons and things like that better than others. Some people have biological and physiological limitations that other people may not have, okay? And if that's the case, you may or you may not be able to change that, okay? You may not be able to change that. If you are a poor methylator, you can do some things to support methylation, okay? But are you going to become as strong and resilient as somebody who has, what is it like the Viking DNA or something, where they're basically kind of immune to the poisonous, toxic effects of alcohol? And I say that kind of maybe not being completely serious, but they have an extremely high ability to handle alcohol, more than like any other person on the planet. There's something very special about their body, their DNA, that allows them to be able to drink massive amounts of alcohol without suffering from the severe damage that somebody else would suffer. Okay? And of course, there's a lot of individual differences within that as well. And I think it's like the Viking kind of thing. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think it's like that particular DNA from that Northern Europe lineage. At least, I think. I should have looked it up before I started talking about it. I remember reading about it years ago. I didn't look it up to double check it, but I do know that does, that does exist. And then you have people like Native Americans that have a very poor ability to metabolize and neutralize and handle alcohol. So, you definitely have the spectrum, okay? And if you are someone on that very, very low spectrum, or on the other end of the spectrum, then you may be able to do things to mitigate it a little bit, but you're not changing your DNA. And yes, we have epigenetics, okay? Yes, there's epigenetics. There's things that we can do to help and support our bodies, for sure. But it doesn't mean that you're ever going to be able to be bionic when it comes to alcohol. There's just limitations that your body has, okay? So this idea that all of a sudden your body will be able to tolerate these things just because, you've been healing, doesn't really match up. It doesn't match up with nature and how nature operates. And just because your body can adapt to something and you don't notice it, doesn't actually mean that your body isn't noticing it, that your body isn't feeling it, that there isn't something happening under the level of your observation or your conscious awareness, your physical symptoms. That's not what it means, okay? And I'm going to use perfume as an example, or fabric softener, scented detergents, things that smell, all sorts of chemicals that have a smell. Now, we know that some people are hypersensitive to chemicals, like I am, whether I can smell them or not, because they trigger my physiology in a way that I can feel them. Not only can I smell the chemicals that smell, but I feel them. I feel them. I feel them in my nervous system. I feel them on my face, my tongue, my nose, my lips, my body. Like, I feel them. And then if chemicals don't smell, they don't have an odor that I can detect, I can feel them. I can feel them on my body, can feel them. My nervous system starts reacting. Hypersensitive. Not everybody is hypersensitive. Not everybody feels it. Not everybody notices it. For some people, it's below the threshold of what they notice. But it doesn't mean they're not being poisoned. Like, I don't know how to explain this to people in a way that makes sense. It doesn't mean you're not being poisoned. A lot of people are poisoned by industrial chemicals and all sorts of things, but they never had any outright symptoms of it. So they didn't know. I just happen to feel it. So get the fuck away from it as fast as I possibly can. But other people have no warning signs. None, zero, nada. All right? So just because you don't have a symptom doesn't mean that your body isn't registering it at a level that is dangerous. And I just don't know how many times I can say this. I've talked about this a lot, about the carnivore community, where, people like to say, well, if the carnivore diet was healing you, you should be able to go back, to the dog that bit you and be fine, right? Like this mentality, and it's not true, okay? It's not true. Just because you don't have a symptom doesn't mean something is not affecting you. I don't know how to say that more plainly, okay? So, it's a problem. And it's like people who wear perfume, they become nose blind, right? They can't smell it on themselves anymore. But yet, someone like me who doesn't wear perfume, I'm not around fragrances, I go near it and it's like taking me down. I have to get out of there. I can't even stay there. It's because their body has adapted to it. It doesn't make it less toxic or less poisonous. It just means their body has adapted to it, because that is what the body does. It adapts, even to terrible, poisonous environments. It adapts. But it doesn't mean that you're free from the effects of that. So this is why, I have a beef with so many of the people out there in the so-called healing space. They're really just talking nonsense. Okay, they're talking nonsense. Now, can we strengthen our bodies to have more resilience? Absolutely. And that's what a lot of us are on this journey to do, to strengthen our bodies so we can handle some of this a little bit better. But it doesn't mean that because we don't have a symptom that the harm isn't being done. And I could go on and on talking about this, but I think I'm just going to leave it there. Because when you understand physiology and how it works, you start to realize that lack of symptom, because there's poison in the environment, or you're ingesting poison, whether they be plant toxins, man-made synthetic chemicals in food, pesticides, whatever, doesn't mean that they're not affecting you. Okay, it's like people that have Parkinson's disease, that live in the Parkinson belt, right, where they are just flooded with pesticides and shit in the environment. They're not necessarily feeling it at the beginning. They're not even necessarily feeling it in the middle. They may not even be noticing the symptoms of that right up until they start getting their first signs of the Parkinson's, right? Whereas for me, I go somewhere where somebody has just sprayed pesticides, bug spray, anything. My face starts twitching, my lip goes numb, my tongue goes numb. I was at a birthday party over the weekend and I had to stay away from certain groups of people because they had bug spray on. I couldn't even go near them. My body is hyper reactive and hyper responsive. I can literally feel it. So my neighbors, when they do laundry, I can feel it. Sometimes I can smell it if they're using scented stuff. But if they're using unscented stuff that's toxic, I can feel it. I can feel it on my body. So some people feel it and some people don't. Not feeling it is not an indicator that it's not poisoning you. Again, I'm a little fired up about this subject, so I think I'll end it here. All right, signing out.